miss this if I can't. So just super excited for what we got to go over, though it's some interesting news.
Yeah, I was running the numbers like we do every week, and the big question we had last week is how are things going to trend? Are we
Yep.
going to see them trend back up a little bit? Or are we going to start seeing them trend back down a little bit?
Yep.
And I think we got our answer this past week with sales. And the answer is we're going to see them trend down a little bit. So let's hop right into the numbers and show people what we're looking at.
There we go.
Basically, what we saw, and remember this, we saw the jump at the end of the month. Of course, we get
Yep.
those. And then we saw a big drop down to 419 units. And then we didn't take the usual jump back up to the 600, which we had seen consistently in the past couple months. We only jumped up to 550, roughly. So when you look at those numbers, that 6% or that 600, take minus or divided by that 550, we're getting roughly about an 8% sales drop, which kind of had a gut feeling we're going to head that way.
Yeah, so I think what'll be interesting to kind of see these next couple of weeks is, does it kind of find that baseline, stay around that 500 to 550? Is it just going to be a little bit less activity on the marketplace, or is it going to be something where maybe we're going to see that those peaks are going to be lower and then lower and then lower?
Guts saying we're probably going to start seeing lower and lower, and there's a couple different reasons. Main one being inventory.
Yeah.
Again, this week we jumped in inventory again. Right now, from the beginning of the year, we're actually up 137%. And if you look at it, April is where we really started to take that jump. And that's when, of course, we took the big jump in the interest rates.
Yep.
And we're just seeing that number of inventory in both home sales or in homes, single family homes, as well as in condos and in townhomes. So people are having, again, more of a choice. We're still behind what most people would consider a balanced market. But I think because we've dropped so drastically, so quickly, buyers are starting to feel emboldened. And go ahead.
No, it's kind of interesting with what you're saying, because we're not even quite, like, the numbers don't even have us in a balanced market, right? But we saw such a shift so fast that it almost feels like a buyer's market right now.
It does. It does. And what reflects that in the numbers is, if we sneak back here a little bit, is remember last week we saw a small jump in price discounts. It was nothing major. But it was across. But it was across the board. This week, if we look at original list to sales price, the average actually dropped a little bit, but look at this. It all jumped. $6,000 on between a $200,000 and $300,000 house. So where we were at 100% list price to sales price across the board for the past 2 years, or a little above that, that's actually a 2% discount. We haven't seen a 2% discount in a long time. And then if you look between the 3 and the 4, they've dropped down about 2,000, about 0.5%. Again, this number increased here, the number increased here, and boy, did the number increase there.
Well, so I'm curious, and this is just speaking, is this kind of does it play into a couple different areas? Is it one, a scenario where so many people were listing so aggressively, going, okay, like, my house is worth 500, I'm going to list at 550. and then not getting in. That's why we're seeing the reduction. Or is it like, hey, it's worth 500, I'm listing at 500, but I'm selling it for 480?
I think we're starting to see more of the latter than the previous. And the reason why I say that is you're seeing more homes be on the market longer. Our average days on market is still sitting around 20, but again, you're getting that feeling from the sellers that it's not so much the first weekend now. It's been on the market for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And okay, 2 weeks, let's do a price cut. And the price cuts are being very aggressive. You know, at the $400,000, $500,000 level, you're seeing 2, 3, 4% price cuts.
Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, if you're seeing a 3-4% price cut, that's a big cut on initial, and they're happening sooner than we used to. But you know, and I say used to, we're going back to 2018, 2017, and so forth. It may be a month before you do a price cut in the past. You know, but now I think what we have is we have that fear, but I think it's also that fear of what happens if rates go up again, right? And then I lose a little bit more of my buyer pool.
And what's coming up this week? Actually, first part of next week. Fed meetings. Fed meetings. And I think you and I are probably on the same page that I think they're both going to go 1%.
Yeah.
At least. I wouldn't be. And this has been the biggest debate that I've heard from people back and forth is they're going to go one or two ways. They're going to go the 1%. If it doesn't work, they're going to go full Volcker, which means they're going to start jumping 2, 3, 4% to really try and quash it. Or half the people are saying no, they're going to hurt the economy so much that they're going to have to start reducing. They're probably going to start doing quarter point reductions. I'm kind of in the second boat simply because you look historically. Volcker was a anomaly. He did something that nobody else was willing to do.
Yeah.
Where everyone else gets scared, they don't want to be blamed for the decline in the economy. And of course, we have elections coming up, so they're going to be getting pressure to keep the economy as strong as possible going into the elections. Yeah, and that's true for whichever party's in power.
Exactly, and you know, there's the hard part is I think where we look at it is we're trying to figure out, all right, what's causing this one piece, and yes, like stupid amount of money was printed, stupid amount of money given to the people to help with everything. That it's going to cause what we're seeing right now. It's just going to happen when you influx a bunch of cash into a system that didn't belong there, quote unquote. And you know, but where I think we're seeing a lot of this too is where we've got really the bulk of our buyers, like the bulk of our spending now is, you know, it's that millennial generation, right? And it's a large generation where, you know, you had the baby boomers, which was one part of that, and we had a large influx of inflation during that, and then you had XF in that in between, where it's a lot smaller. But now we're in that millennial generation, where we've got so many more people, and the millennials are all in that. They're all in that 30 to 45 range. So they're buying the first home, the second home. They're having the kids. They have this. They have the second job, the third job. They're making more. They're spending more than they've ever spent, and they're at that height, that peak of spending. And if you have a big generation that's got a lot of population, a large number of population in their spending phase of their life, where they have the money and the capability to spend, it's going to create demand going up, which is going to help propel inflation even further. So, you know, I think the Feds are they're going to take, and I think I'm right there with you, I think they're going to increase, and I could see them increasing throughout the remainder of the year. And then I think we're going to see them start pulling back next year. Like, you know, just as kind of that, like right when we get into like that, you know, maybe even November timeframe, like we start to see those pullbacks start to happen.
I agree with you. I agree with you there wholeheartedly. One thing I wanted to go over with you is because one thing we had mentioned about last week was roughly, we saw about 20% of the entire MLS get a price discount within a week.
Yeah.
And we had happened to mention Boise, Idaho. And this is some of the markets that we're seeing with extremely large amounts of their MLS getting discounts. And right there at that top of that list is Boise, Idaho. 61% of their list.
My goodness. That right there is a market that went from, on fire to ice cold like that.
In a heartbeat. Yeah, in an absolute heartbeat. And same thing with a lot of these that were out west. Denver, Colorado exploded.
Yeah.
Salt Lake City, Utah blew up.
Mm-hmm.
The one that makes me nervous, though, is down here, number 9.
Tampa.
Man,
almost 45%.
40, yeah. Tampa's supposed to be one of the hottest markets still in the country.
Yeah.
And they saw roughly 45% of their listings get a price decrease.
Yeah. That's scary right there.
So it kind of like, ooh, we're very close.
We're not as safe as maybe we thought we might have been, but
yeah.
I think it's one thing, and that's the interesting is I'm curious to see how this kind of stays. If Tampa makes an appearance but then backs off, I'm not as worried as if they just stay like Boise, Idaho at the top right now. If Tampa cools off a little bit right now, but then it resets and it's no longer at the top in the next week or two.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not as worried and concerned. It's kind of like that immediate correction of we were getting too aggressive, let's correct it, and we stabilize.
You asked me a question, is it this or is it that? Tampa, I think, is more of they were too aggressive. They've continued to push the prices up, and they've tried to push them up too far. Mm-hmm. And that's where, my house is really worth $500. I'm going to list it at $550.
Yeah.
And now they're realizing, oh, wow, interest rates have gone up. We got to pull them back a little bit. That's one place where I think that's where that scenario happens to play out a little bit. Then the other thing I wanted to go over, because we had talked about renters.
Yeah.
And this is a chart of rental increase percentages year over year. Mm-hmm. And if you can do Austin, Texas, 100%. You imagine having a $2,000 rent, you get your renewal, and it's $4,000.
That's insane. You couldn't do it.
No. No.
Was every tenant finding a new place to live this past year?
I don't know how. I have no idea how people could have possibly done it. But if you look at it down here, you're seeing the 30s, and that's where the Orlando area falls in too. And if you're renting currently, reach out to Joe and to other lenders, because if your lease is coming up and you're paying $2,000, $2,500 for a rental, let us help you find something. My goodness, I was talking to a client yesterday who they put a budget of $4,000 for rent. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, can we sit down and have a cup of coffee and really go through this? What, $4,000. I know there's a couple things we need to fix, but we should, let us help you fix them ASAP. Mm-hmm. Or maybe, we can structure the loan a little bit different to where, hey, let's get you to, let's get a house you can buy, not rent.
Yeah.
What is that, $48,000?
Just a 1 year in rent.
Just 1 year in rent. That's a lot. That's a lot. So, working with her and her husband to try and sit down and go through those numbers and let's really look at this. Evaluate. Is that really the best choice? Is that the only choice? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people have a lot of misnomers about qualifying for homes. I really think they do. And one thing I want to always compliment you on is you take the time to explain it to my clients, and I love that. And that half-hour conversation is worth it. It's always worth it to sit down. Most people are afraid. It's almost kind of an embarrassment. They feel embarrassed. Oh, here's where I'm at in my life. Like, hey, that's okay. I've been worse. Trust me. I've had my ups. I've had my downs. But don't be afraid to ever have that conversation.
Yeah.
Don't ever be afraid to have that conversation, because the good lenders like yourself will take the time and help help people understand this is what we have to do. A lot of them don't understand that, hey, there's 3% programs out there. The Hometown Heroes program. If you're a nurse, a police officer.
Yeah, there's like 50 something professions that it would qualify for the Hometown Heroes, which has its ups and its downs. But the great part about it is it's not free money, because it's a silent second. Like, it does get paid back, but that's down payment. That's closing costs. If you don't have it, if you're renting right now and you're in one of those fields and you don't have funds, like, that's an opportunity for you.
And I think the other thing is, when you talk about closing costs, is we see where we had that 2% decrease in price. Our appraised values are up here still.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it. Don't ask for a price decrease. Sellers are allowed to contribute to closing costs. Conventional is what, 3%? FHA is.
You can go, depending on how much you put down with conventional, it starts at 3, but FHA is going to be, you can go to 6. VA, you can go to 4. There's so many, and if you got 3% is pretty much all you need. But the key here is take advantage of it, offer it. We've seen, I would say, in the last 30 days, we've gotten more files into my office that have a seller credit for closing costs than I've probably seen in the last year. It's starting to, we're seeing it more often. I'm not saying you need to talk to your agent, you need to talk to Brenden and be like, hey, is this realistic on this property, or this, you don't want to go in and just assume, hey, you're getting your closing costs. But the other thing that we've also seen is we've seen some appraisals come in a little bit higher. And then we've seen that renegotiation of hey, we're at 450. Appraisal came in at 455. Hey, we're going to go to the seller and increase our purchase price to 455 and get 5,000 in closing costs, because we know it's there now. And now that, now that helps.
So there's always, and that's the thing that, I always try and convey is there's always options. It's numbers. And when I was on your side of the desk, what I used to tell people, is, you just want me to get to 2, right? And they're like, yeah. I go, well, do I have to do it 1 + 1? They're like, what do you mean? Can I do 4 - 2? Can I do, a half plus 1? As long as I get you to the number you need to get to, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it's legal.
Can't break any laws. There we go.
No, can't break any laws. Can't break any laws. So, those are the things, that we always try and convey to people. So, those are the numbers this week. We're seeing the declines. We're seeing the push towards, more of, again, the buyer's market, more of the normal market. And flexibility in sellers. Don't be afraid to ask. All the seller can do is say no. That's it. Yeah. Then what do? You just go back and you continue to negotiate.
Yeah.
And with the way numbers are heading, the way we're seeing things head, not afraid to ask. Not
Absolutely.
afraid to ask. So I know you got to head out. I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much. And please, if you like it, Facebook, thumbs up. YouTube, thumbs up. And we look forward to seeing everybody again next week. Enjoy that
Sounds
sunshine.
great.
Looks nice over there.
It's bright. All right, rock it out, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.